Hello, and welcome to my 202nd episode of the Smile Revolution interview show. Well, it started out as being a show during the pandemic to help people smile, and then I turned it into this interview show. I used to have a radio show years ago for the Smile Revolution. Anyway, so welcome if you're watching live or on replay. Before I start my interview, I always do, some ideas to uplift and to inspire with the Smile Revolution, since I have that mission. Okay, so this quote I really like. Unfortunately, many people do not consider fun an important item on their daily agenda. For me, that was always high priority in whatever I was doing. Test Pilot General Chuck Yeager. And let's see, kindness every day. Anne Frank said, how lovely that everyone, great and small, can make their contribution toward introducing justice straight away. And you can always give something, even if it's only kindness. And then in this book, The Healing Power of Humor by Alan Klein, he says in the chapter Child's Play, Making Molehills Out of Mountains, children have a remarkable talent for not taking the adult's world with the kind of respect we're so confident it ought to be given. To the irritation of authority figures of all sorts, children expend considerable energy in clowning around. They refuse to appreciate the gravity of our monumental concerns, while we forget that if we were to become more like children, our concerns might not be so monumental. That's from Conrad Heyer's Comic Vision and the Christian Faith. Anyway, so let's see. David Amram, who knew Pete Seeger and Bob Dylan for years. It's going to be on in a few minutes, my part two. What happened was I interviewed him and I had some tech issues. And so I had to break it into two parts. So I'll just give you a little bit of his bio. There's so much, it goes on and on and on. But in 1957, he created and performed with the first ever jazz poetry readings in New York City with novelist Jack Kerouac, a close friend with whom Amram collaborated artistically for over 12 years. And let's see, whoever's watching probably knows a lot about him, I would think. Let's see. In 2011, Amram was inducted into the Oklahoma Jazz Hall of Fame as a recipient of the J. McShann Lifetime Achievement Award. 2013, he was presented with Clearwater's Pete and Toshi Seeger Annual Power of Song Award. I mean, his awards go on and on and on. And let's see. Anyway, what else can I tell you? I mean, it just goes on and on and on with his bio. In 2018, he composed the score for Oscar-winning director Barbara Koppel's new documentary feature film, New Homeland. And he received several awards for his lifetime of work as a classical composer, improvising multi-instrumentalist, and pioneer of world music. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to bring the second part of my interview on.
I got a phone call when Bob found out when Alan found out that I was bringing Bob over. He already called up Channel 13 and arranged for us to have a show in 2 months called.
I knew about that, right?
Called Free. So Roland was there,
right?
And he said, "Man, this is the crappiest thing I've ever done in my life. I'm not doing it anymore. Really, it's bullshit." Pardon my language.
Okay.
And I said, well, that's true. But I explained to him what I thought might be a nice idea, except we had no idea that they were going to try to make an Allen Ginsberg goes into the rock and roll world or to songwriting, whatever. In other words, if he was going to do that, fine, but he should spend a few years learning how to play and everything.
Right.
Well, and Happy Traum played on it. A guy named Maruga, who was a wonderful percussionist. Stephen Taylor, who's a terrific guitar player, and really spent 20 years teaching Alan how to do music. And it was a pretty awful, and there's a classic shot I remember of Dylan sitting there in a suit with a sour face saying, how in the hell did I ever get conned into doing this? But he did it to be a good sport. And I kind of admired him for, doing it and not just walking out. And I remember one part, Alan would just start out going, bah! I said, Alan, let Bob play an introduction. What? I said, yeah, play 4 bars or 8 bars introduction leading up to you singing. I said, he's been doing that for a long time. So basic stuff like that anybody would know that spent enough time in a coffee house listening and paying attention would know about anyway. We did that. And the record came out. It was a disaster. John Hammond put it out. It was a complete disaster. Then Hal Willner came along and spent years editing it. And Alan tried to edit it. And every time he'd run out of money, he'd call up and I'd go put in French horn tracks and percussion things and all other instruments. And eventually they took a whole jumble. And also a lot of the television program you had Gregory Corso coming in carrying a toy lawnmower and saying, that's salad, nerves suck. But that, needless to say, wasn't on the recording. And someone that was supposed to be the cousin of the Dalai Lama, just anybody that walked in. And I think it wasn't Alan's fault. He just didn't know any better. He was trying. So
this album is all from that TV show on Channel 13?
No, that was the basis of it.
Oh.
Then they redid the whole thing, and they took a bunch of other things that were terrible. And Hal Willner spent years editing out all of the overdubs and crap that were done by people that never.
So has that ever come out?
Well, fortunately, the ones with all the crappy stuff was hit the wastebasket.
Right.
And the one that came out sounded pretty good because everything was redone over a period of time. And thanks to Hal Willner, I don't know how he ever had the patience to do that. It sounded pretty good. The Holy Jelly Roll, whatever it was.
That's what it's called?
Yeah, finally came out. Dylan never did anything with him again.
So Dylan's not in it at all?
No, the only thing was when they did in 1975, they did that Rolling Thunder review. And
right.
that was when Jack Elliott was playing someplace, and I got hepatitis, so I wasn't able to come. And about 14 people jumped up on stage and barged in with Jack. He said, "Hey, it's supposed to be my show." So most of them became the cast for the Rolling Thunder review, and I couldn't go on it because I had hepatitis.
Okay. Oh.
Anyway, I'm fine, and they were fine. But it was kind of nice to see out of all that, something good came out of it. And Alan started sounding really, really good towards the end. He learned how to do all that stuff after 20 years. Steve Taylor deserves the credit for showing him basic stuff.
Okay, good. All right. So in terms of the movie, how did you feel they portrayed Pete?
Well, I loved those early songs of Dylan's like everybody else did. And they were magnificently played. They sounded great. The sound was wonderful. They included that great Joan Baez song, I forget the name of the title. For the grace of God, go I. The wonderful, the beautiful, beautiful song. And they have some really nice music from that period, as well as some of Bob's greatest songs. Mm-hmm. And the use of it, the way it was used, I thought was terrific. And the guy who acted Dylan did a fine job. And the person who did Joan Baez and some of the other people were such terrific actors
Mhm.
that had nothing to do with what they were like in real life, nor should any of us who knew them since I'm over 90 forget about it. But our opinion is worthless anyway. It doesn't make any difference. It wasn't an official bio.
Exactly right. I mean, you can't duplicate like Pete Seeger. You can't duplicate what
I thought the guy who played Pete did a really good job, and that was
Edward Norton. Yeah,
that was an impossible person to play. And he
right.
did it well. People who criticized the way Toshi behaved, she ran the whole show,
Right.
but she also was very reserved, very well mannered, and very quiet when she had to be. Then she
Right.
let everybody know in private what to do.
She was really running everything. Yeah.
But the fact some people criticized her the performance, and that, I remember she was that way very often. Then you got to know her; she didn't tolerate anything.
Right. I know.
But she was
tough.
But she was terrific and a wonderful person with a heart of gold.
Yeah.
And also the fact that, so I didn't take any offense with any of that. And I think the character of Joan Baez, the actress, I don't even know her name, was just so wonderful. And the woman who played his other woman friend, all the actors were so good.
They were great.
And the story of the movie was so well made and so
it really was. I saw it twice. I mean, I just loved it.
I thought it was excellent, and I thought it presented a wonderful picture of the best of those times. And that's why I said the 12-year-old with We'll Never Meet with the iPhone now can make a film and get somebody to show it besides the bedsheet festivals about all the other stuff that happened and is still happening, not only in the village, but in little places all over the country as a result of what happened then. And of course, that is something that nobody in Hollywood would touch. But, and the fact it was about Dylan opened up the door to the point that it was such a good movie that people figuring that makes it acceptable will do something about that time and have an open a chance to have it distributed and shown, perhaps. So anything that's really good can lead to something else that's really good.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that younger people who had no idea what it was like back then, at least they have an idea of the music and what happened in the village.
Well, actually, it was better. I felt, and I was living in the village. I was there when all this influx of all those geniuses with guitars came roaring into the village. But there was a folk scene before they ever came. And there's folk scenes now all over Brooklyn and the Lower East Side and the Bronx, and fantastic music everywhere in small places. And with the new person in charge of the plumbing at the moment, has appointed himself as the musical director of the Kennedy Center.
Right.
Rather than saying, "Oh, it's all sunk," you say, "No, I've conducted at the Kennedy Center and played there. It's a beautiful place, the great upholstery, but they can get another building." There are a lot of empty buildings in Washington, D.C. I used to live there. They can call it this as a building. They get another building and have something like the Kennedy Center honors that are not political, and there's enough talented people to be recognized, and they can have, again, with the magic of this thing and what you're doing, put it up online and let people know that there's a whole, as they said, Elvis Presley's famous punchline, a whole lot of shaking going on. There's a lot of stuff, great stuff happening. So I think more about that, and I think everyone else should too. And for all the people who are so upset and whining, it doesn't really make any difference, because what might be crappy for the moment will go into the landfill and the sewer and the cemetery, and the well-deserved to be forgotten about. John Keats, 1818, England's first great jazz poet back in 1818, said in the poem Ediaman, Ode to a Grecian Urn, a thing of beauty is a joy forever.
Right.
And also Miles Davis in 1959 named his great song, So What? And the answer is, what's beautiful stays beautiful. The so what part refers to junk, trash, garbage, and that's why the landfill and the sewers are bulging. And there's a lot of stuff that will go there and be forgotten about. So rather than dwelling on what we think is wrong, I think we can celebrate what's right, and certainly
what's good and what's joyful and bringing beauty and love.
Yeah,
and
exactly. And that the film, I think, was excellent, a really good movie. A lot of the cheap, rotten, disgusting, nauseating stuff wasn't in the film. Not only wasn't glorified, it wasn't even in the film. And that, I give them a lot of credit for making it that way. And the actors gave great performances. It was wonderfully directed, well edited. It was a hell of a good film.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it over and over. I've already seen it twice. I would see it again. I know it was that good.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing. And I think, and I would want to thank Bob Dylan, if I ever see him again, for allowing that to come out and being in charge of it, to see that it came out where essentially, I think he went out of his way to not to make himself a star, but to be sort of mysterious and make the whole era interesting and important.
Now, when was the last time you saw him?
The last time was when he was playing upstate, and he was doing a show with Willie Nelson. I went back and saw him just for a minute.
Okay.
But I think, he's still there and still going. He's still doing it.
Yep, he's still doing it.
And I give him a lot of credit. And and those songs that he wrote, and this last song that is so terrific, that also his writing, the book Chronicles, is quite amazing. And a lot of the speeches that he's given and talks. He's a brilliant guy. And I don't think he's the last person in the world that, you have to remember, when he was probably in his maybe 20, 21, 22, he goes to Paris for the first time, and on the front page of the largest newspaper of Paris, Le Dieu est arrivé. God has arrived. That was the big headline. Imagine the guy in the 20 years old, more or less just starting out, trying to still figure out how to sing and how to play, how to do it, suddenly being compared to Beethoven and Shakespeare.
Right.
I mean, that's be a lot for anybody to handle at any age.
Yeah.
And the fact that he kept going, kept doing all the different things he's done and still doing it,
it's amazing.
Is remarkable.
It is.
And he deserves credit for that. And a lot of other people, pick up a guitar and singing and read books and poetry, and now are going to the movies because of what he's done. And that's the most important thing any of us can do, is to foster creativity in others.
Yeah, inspire them. Yeah,
that's what we're all here to do as best we can.
Yeah. Well, David, this has been such a fascinating conversation. Is there anything else to wrap this up? Anything else you want to add about Peter Dylan, or
about who?
About Pete Seeger or Dylan?
Well, Pete. The extraordinary thing about him, which I think was shown in the movie, a lot of people commented. They showed Dylan finally saying, "Well, I've had it with the folk scene,"
right?
And they show him driving off, going off of his motorcycle or whatever, and there they show Pete loading chairs up.
Right. I know, yeah.
And that's what Pete did when he came to the 4-H fair. I said, "Where's Pete?" He got there. I said, "Oh, he's out with the trash crew." And,
It sounds like Pete. It does.
and he came with Toshi, and she said, Pop, as they used to call him, Pops is going to be just a grandpa today. He's not going to play. And Tom Chapin came out, and sure enough, somebody comes by said, Dave, we know you live on a farm. We're trying to get this horse on a trailer. We can't do it. And Victor Tishop's not here. He knows how to do a lot. We want to get the horse in the trailer. Can you put the blanket over the horse's head? I said, sure, I'll try to help out. Pete says, I'll go too. Jumps up and goes over. We put the horse in the trailer, and then we started playing. And it was finally raining, and Tom Chapin and Pete played. They weren't even supposed to be there I would sell corn, and then I would play, We ended up playing about a half an hour. We had so much fun. And he was just the kind of guy that would, anytime there was anything of that, or if someone had a flat tire or a health problem, or if some miners were having trouble in Kentucky, he'd be the first one to jump on the plane, go for nothing. However, if you went to him and said, Pete, I love your music, he'd go, oof. He couldn't stand it. He didn't like being complimented, and he didn't like people invading his privacy. He was a very private person.
Well, he didn't like being famous either.
No, but he was a super gentleman, and he always stayed someone that would help others. And he stayed just with what he loved and believed in and all of his life. And I think the reason why he liked Roland so much was just because Roland himself was such a wonderful guy. In the beginning of that when we played for his 90th birthday at Madison Square Garden, and they had all the Native American people, American Indians come out in the beginning. When he played that flute in the beginning, that sounded so beautiful. And he said, well, David, that's the only song I really know. He said, I spent my whole life playing it, and I think I could do it well enough to honor the people who have been doing it forever. And he was really serious. And any kind of music that he played, folk music, to honor the cultures from which he came and honor the people who did it, and never to say he was an expert or he was an authority. And he always made anybody and everybody feel good that were playing with him, and set an example for all of us of how we should behave and how we should behave with our children and with our friends and our family. He was a wonderful man, and he never got caught up in anything. And when the political system suddenly said he's a commie pinko going to overthrow the government, danger, instead of becoming an angry, enraged, hate-filled man, he said, well, okay, I'll go to summer camps,
right,
which nobody did, and high schools, which nobody did at that time. And he just took being a number one drawing card and did that. And it's because of his activities of just doing that, because he loved it, that This Land Is Your Land became almost our national anthem. And when he finally did it at Obama inauguration, Nora Guthrie, Woody's daughter, said that's the first time people, when he and Bruce Springsteen and Tao, his grandson, who played so beautifully, the three of them played that, and probably almost 1 billion people saw that all over the world.
Amazing.
Nora said, finally, people got the idea about what Woody was about and what Pete was about too, in what he was doing, not for himself, but for the ideals and the music and the spirit that Woody had. And that's something that all of us can think about, to live up to and be inspired by. And I think that this movie had a sense of honoring Woody to an extent, certainly that way. The influence of that beauty and that love of country and the love of people all people is so important and so universal and so valuable, and that presents the best of America and all the other things that I'm involved in jazz and symphony music, as well as folk music, comes out of that. It's not just about politics. It's about being for real and common sense and responsibility, and a sense that there have to be some adults in the room. And I think that's basically showing that without preaching or talking about it, because that's the way those guys were, and that's what their work represented. And I think that the beauty that the Native American people had, that they shared with us when we came over here, and they didn't say, let's see your credit card, or how much money did your father make, or what's your ethnic background, or how do you pray. They welcomed everybody. They showed us graciousness and still show us graciousness. So it gives us a chance to become civilized.
Right. And then, Pete was always had a lot of Native American friends, and you too.
I think we'll be on the way towards that. So I'd say 200 years, everything will be cool.
Okay, good. Okay,
I hope.
All right. Well, anyway, I just want to say about at Pete's 90th, Pete wanted Roland to sing Indian Prayer, which was one of his favorite songs, that Richie recorded. But Roland wanted, I don't know if you know this, but Roland wanted to make sure that he had more of his Native American friends and on stage, and you, because you always played with a lot of Native Americans, and you're like an honorary Native American. I know, right? That's what Roland told me, because you played with a lot of natives.
I'd say I've been lucky.
Right.
Would be more accurate.
So anyway, so Roland is the one who orchestrated all of those Native Americans to play, Margot Thunderbird and the speakers. Remember the Oren Lions and all of them.
Joanne Shenandoah.
Right. So Pete just wanted Roland to sing Indian Prayer. So I'm just telling you, maybe you didn't know. So Roland said, I'm not doing it by myself. So he's the one who put it all together with all the natives and invited you on stage and everything.
Yeah. I remember I asked Richie Havens, I said, Richie, Roland's been talking about this for months. Is it really going to happen? Because I don't want to go there and look like I'm trying to barge in. I'll just buy a ticket. And
oh, you mean at Madison Square Garden, Pete's
before it happened? So Richie said, "Well, you know Roland."
Yes, and I do too. Yes, and I do too.
So he meant if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I'm so glad they finally showed it on television after this movie came out. I guess there's some suddenly renewed interest. Right. And it was so nice to see Roland there in different parts, and to see and hear everybody.
I know. It was an amazing concert.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and it gave such a nice picture about Pete and about everybody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that Dylan wasn't in that, because it would have been nice for him to get the appreciation.
I know. Yeah, but I don't know. Roland was trying to get the two of them back together, Dylan and Pete, from another concert. I don't know. It never happened.
Well, I think too, and when people are in that position, the whole world wants them to be part of whatever they're doing, and 98% of the people want them for only for reasons of promo, and you can't do everything.
Right. So I know. I'm just saying it was Roland tried, but anyway, it wasn't meant to be. But anyway, David, this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much for spending the time with me on my show with my audience.
Well, I wish you too. I remember those old ones used to make when everybody was wearing the different hats. That was a long time ago.
I'm still doing them.
Oh, I love that.
I'm back with full force with my hat happenings.
Yeah.
I had to take a break for a while, but the pandemic and whatever. I did take a break from it, but now it's back. My shows are bringing a lot of joy and fun, and hats, hat awareness, and fun and smiles.
Well, the idea of the smile revolution ain't a bad idea either.
We need a smile. We
Because
need it.
if they don't have some smiles and laughter, as they say in The Sopranos,
exactly.
Forget about it.
Exactly. We're in bad shape if you can't smile and laugh and have more fun. So that's what I'm all about. And so anyway, as you know, so thank you, David. It's been great to see you too. And thanks for all the inspiring ideas. And you're always very uplifting and inspiring. And it's great to hear about Bob from because you knew him.
Good.
So thank you so much.
For all the people who resent European royalty of the 19th century, you give being a princess a good name.
Thank you. I know it was given to me because some people in the folk world are like, why she calls herself a princess? Well, it was given to me. So anyway, but it sounds good. Princess. Wow. I know it's had like a good ring to it.
That's it.
So anyway, I've always been controversial. So some people like it, some people don't, but it's okay.
Well, if they don't, they will.
Okay. Thank you. All right, David.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And I'll see you and talk to you later. Thanks again.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I don't know. I'm small here. Wait a second. Wait a second. Hi. For those of you who are still watching, I hope you enjoyed that. That was my part 2 because I had that tech issue with my part 1 with David Amram. And so anyway, next week is Amy Rigby, musician. She is now based in the UK. And amazing. I read her book, her memoir, Girl to City, and I'll be talking to her next week. So I hope you can join me Monday, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Lots of love and keep smiling, keep sweet. Join the smile revolution. Bye. It's called the smile revolution that comes, goes round and back to you. So smile, 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 a simple smile will do.